Welcome to the Women in Wealth podcast, brought to you by Regina McCann-Hess, a certified financial planner with over 2 decades of experience. This show is for professional women who want guidance in working towards their retirement vision in learning, building, planning, striving for your dreams, and putting the work in now so that you can pursue your financial independence.
What exactly is a recession? Hello, I'm Regina McCann-Hess, president of Forge Wealth Management, and welcome to our Women in Wealth series. Today, we're going to talk about recessions and the 10 things that you should know about recessions. And people hear the word all the time, but really are like, okay, what does that mean? And what does it mean for us to be in a recession? And what are the factors? The economy, it's related to the economy, and the economy is not the stock market. In fact, stocks have actually generated positive returns on average, not all the time, but on average during economic contractions. So, what is in a name? Number one thing about a recession. A recession is an extended period of declining economic output, declining wages, declining employment, declining industrial production, and declining retail sales. So those are a lot of different things that are going into saying whether or not we're having a recession or not. The second thing that you should know about a recession is that a recession is not the same as a down market. The stock market is based on expectations for the economy in 6 to 12 months. So stocks can move up during a recession or down when the economy is expanding. By contrast, economic recessions or expansions may not be identified until months after they begin. And I've heard that many, many times, people trying to figure out if we're in a recession. And a lot of times you'll hear the analyst and, like the really smart guys say, it's literally after the fact. They're like, oh, yeah, by the way, we've been in a recession for a couple months, but we just couldn't see the signs because they were kind of like, right around us, but still kind of hovering around there. So many times you could be in a recession for several months before you even know, until they literally tell us, hey, guess what? You're in a recession. And then you're in a recession. So that's the second thing to know. The third thing to know is internal versus external shocks. So recessions can be started by imbalances in the economy, such as a financial crisis. Remember 2008. Now, these imbalances usually must stabilize for the recession to end. So they can also be started by the economy's reaction to external shocks, such as a pandemic. Does anybody remember one of those? A war or a terrorist attack. And sadly, we do all remember several wars and terrorist attacks where recessions were, shortly thereafter a result of those items. The fourth thing that you should know about a recession is that the customer is always right. Consumer spending is the largest driver of the U.S. economic growth. Today, it accounts for 68% of U.S. economic activity. So if people stop shopping, well, obviously we need to shop for food. But even with that, you'll see people not going to the higher end stores. They'll, kind of step down looking for the bargains on the food, things like that. Or obviously shopping at the mall and travel, things like, bougie handbags or bougie cars, bougie travel, things like that. They're, even if they can still do it, they're going to bring their budget down quite a lot. So that's where the consumer comes in, to say, hey, wait a minute, things are not feeling too good right now, and this is how we're going to respond. Okay, the fifth thing to know is that what goes up must come down. Recessions and expansions are actually a very normal part of the economic cycle. There have been about 13 recessions since 1945, and they are occurring about 6 years apart on average. Now, it doesn't mean they're every 6 years. It just means on average, that's when they've happened. The sixth thing you should know about a recession is that we grow more than we contract. Excluding the Great Depression, US recessions have lasted on average about 10 months. Now, the Great Recession, which followed the global financial crisis in 2008, actually lasted 18 months. And yeah, it was painful, very painful. I remember it very vividly. The expansion, however, that followed the Great Recession is the longest on record, and it spanned more than 10 years. Now, the other recession of note is the pandemic induced recession in 2020, which only lasted for 2 months, and that is the shortest recession on record. And it was almost like a blink of an eye. You're like, what? We're in a recession? Oh, wait a minute. We're out of it now. It was very, very interesting. Okay, so the seventh thing about a recession that you should know, connected but not always in sync. So even in today's interconnected world, individual countries can enter recession without involving the whole global economy. According to the World Bank, there have been about six global recessions since 1950. Now, compare that to the US, we've had about 13 in that same time frame. So you can see, some of them may line up, but not all of them. Okay, the eighth thing to know would be that bad begets good. The Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland found that the worse the recession, the stronger the expansion that followed it. They didn't find a connection between the length of an economic expansion and the severity of the recession that followed it, though. So it's just quite interesting how they do these studies and what they find out. Who knew? Okay, so the ninth thing to know about a recession is that not all stocks are created equal. So recession impacts various sectors of the economy and, of course, the stock market differently. Industrials, considered cyclical, are more impacted during economic contractions. Think like your discretionary, I already mentioned, like your travel or your designer clothes, things like that. You're gonna travel less. And do those cyclical type of spending when you are in an economic contraction. Now, there's other things like necessities that you're still going to buy regardless of your economic cycle. And think of utilities, especially if you own an electric car, you need to charge your car. You also need lights on in your house. So those things are going to, be resilient, a little bit more resilient during a recession. Okay, the 10th item to know about a recession is that stocks can actually grow when the economy contracts. Although down markets sometimes do coincide with recessions, stocks actually produce positive returns during 7 of the 13 recessions since 1945. In fact, the S&P 500 index gained about 3.68 on average during recessions. Now, I find that shocking. I was really surprised when I was prepping for this podcast to see that, you would have positive returns during a recession because, when you live through them, everything feels painful. People are out of work, people are worried and, fearful and all that fun stuff. So you're very surprised to see where you actually had some positive returns during times like that. So those are the big things about the recessions. Hey, you don't need to remember, all the signs of a recession. Some really smart person is going to tell us we're in a recession. Obviously, we're probably going to feel some of that stuff before they announce that we're in a recession. Like I said, you could be in a recession for several months before they finally say, oh, yeah, wait a minute, we're actually in a recession. And you're going to feel it in your own wallet. Like, oh, I really don't want to spend that money. We're not going to go out to dinner every week. We're going to make our own food, things like that, where you feel like you pretty much feel like you need to tighten the belt. Those are lessons to learn and intuition to listen to. Okay, so I think that actually could be our call to action today. If you're feeling like things are a little tight, rein in the bell a little bit, rein in the spending, so that you have a little bit extra to help you through any kind of recession that we may or may not have, or may not be in. You don't know, right? Until we're told, we don't know. All right. Thanks for putting up with me today. Again, I'm Regina McCann Hess, president of Forge Wealth Management. My website is forgewealth.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Forge Wealth, and LinkedIn, Regina McCann Hess. Make it a great day.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Women in Wealth podcast. You can watch the founders video I created for you to learn more about me and how I can guide you towards your financial independence at www.forgewealth.com. The information in this podcast is educational and general in nature and does not take into consideration the listener's personal circumstances. Therefore, it is not intended to be a substitute for specific, individualized financial, legal, or tax advice. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a final decision. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, and SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Forge Wealth Management are separate entities from the LPL Financial. Our show guests and their companies are not affiliated with nor endorsed by LPL Financial, Private Advisor Group, or Forge Wealth Management.